watch this over and over again. Well, thank you all for taking a few minutes to come and learn about the ACPE self-study. If you came in and I didn't catch you, I have some handouts. They were by Suzanne just a few minutes ago, so we can send them over. But it's some of these slides, which are also found on the S Drive, and you'll see that all of the things I talk about are on the S Drive, so if you ever need any of those resources. The first thing I wanted to just orient everyone to is the structure of how we're going to get our ACPE self-study report done. And I'll back up first of all just for a bit for people who were not here at the college the last time we had to do an ACPE report. What this means is that we self-assess our program reference to all of the standards that ACPE has for a College of Pharmacy program in the United States. Right now there are 30 standards, and that spans everywhere from our relationship to the larger university, to our physical facilities, to our number of faculty, to our curriculum, to our assessment plan. All of those aspects of the program get assessed. And we do the assessment. We're supposed to reflect on ourselves, tell ACPE how we're doing, and then they come and see if we're telling the truth, essentially.
It's recorded, remember that.
Well, that's what they told us actually in our orientation to the self-study structure. They said that's what we do. We just want to see if you're able to, if you're self-aware enough to reflect on how your program is doing, and warning against being too critical, saying everything is terrible, and warning against also being too positive, saying everything's just perfect here, everything is awesome kind of thing. So they warned against both of those extremes, and just to be honest and reflect in an honest way, and if there are things that need to be worked on, then just say it, and they'll help facilitate that. So that's the idea here, is that we have to respond to 30 different standards that ACPE has set up, and we have to figure out a way to divide that workload up. Because the last thing that they want is for some person, one faculty member, an administrator, whoever, to sit in his or her office and type the whole thing in a little vacuum. Okay, so they want involvement of as many people as possible. That's faculty, staff, preceptors, administrators, other people at the university, other people in the community, so all that stakeholder stuff. So as far as getting that work done, we've established a kind of a committee structure with myself, luckily for me, as the chair of the steering committee. So I'm supposed to, I guess, help divide out the work, and that's along with the executive committee here at the college. And then we decided to, as a way to parse out the standards, to work within the existing committee structures, and that would be like the curriculum committee, the assessment committee, as well as the existing offices, so academic affairs, student affairs, the dean's office, the department chairs, work within those already formed groups of individuals and divide out the standards that relate to those people. Okay, so this level is called the Standards Committee, and those lucky individuals are listed below. If you are a chair of a committee, or if you are in charge of an office, you are on the Standards Committee, and you will help create working groups. And the working groups are the people that actually will do the work on each individual standard. So, for example, curriculum has several standards, 9, 10, 11, 12, 7 standards that they will work on. So under the curriculum committee, there will be several working groups that will divide up those standards. That doesn't mean that the chair of the curriculum committee will write all of those standards. He will help find the working groups and help them get through writing that stuff for each standard. But that chair doesn't do all the work. So the Standards Committee organizes working groups for each standard. So theoretically, there would be 30 little groups of people, and this is just a few individuals. It's going to be people here that work here, as well as preceptors and other people outside the college. And each working group will have a chair or a leader, somebody that's kind of the point person for making sure that the working group gets their activities done. And in our online system, that's this AAMS thing down here, in the online system, that working group chair will be the standards manager. Okay? And that's the person that can access the system and can enter the information from the group. Okay? And that can be, like I said, it can be anybody. We can assign that standard to that job to anybody at the college. Okay? Does that make sense? We have making sure everything gets done, existing committees and offices, and then little tiny groups all over the place. Okay. All right. Now, a much more complex looking thing, which you happen to have in front of you, the font is too small. This would get you a terrible grade in seminar, right? But this is that committee, that standards committee structure I was talking about, and it lists the standards under each standards committee that standards committee is responsible for. So theoretically, you'll have a little group of individuals for each of those standards, and that's just under the umbrella of which they fall. So if you are a committee chair or in charge of an office here, you see now how many standards working groups you have to pull together. Okay. So how you pull those groups together? Like I said, you should incorporate as many people as possible, and if you have trouble figuring out, well, I don't know how to find the stakeholders. Where do they live? We can help you do that. So if you want some external people to work on your working group and you think it's a standard that external people to the college can contribute to, then by all means, let us know and we'll find those people. If you want preceptors and you don't know any or don't have a close relationship with any of the preceptors, but you think they would be good contributors to the working group, then just let us know. We'll find those people, okay? And we'll work with scheduling and things like that. So try to incorporate as a diverse group as possible. And this is going to include students too. So we'll try to put them on committees, working groups where they can have a unique and useful voice. Okay? Each working group has a chair. Like I mentioned, that person is called the standards manager or the standard manager, and they'll be responsible for actually entering text into this online system. The online system kind of reminds me of like the online tenure promotion system where it prompts you for different pieces of information, and then you put that in and press go. So it's kind of nice, and we'll look at that briefly at the end. And then Adam suggested that everyone work out a plan for editing the documents because if you're working, say, off documents on the S drive, and if you have just one document and everybody's going in there and editing, sometimes things get deleted accidentally, and then it's not always easy for him to go back and retrieve things that people have deleted. So if you want to date them or whatever you want to do, use track changes, it doesn't matter as long as your working group kind of is all on the same page on how that will be done. Okay? And we're planning to just make a little folder for each standard on the S drive so that there'll be a place to put stuff and everybody can find the stuff related to the accreditation. Okay? So working groups will be assembled and they'll start writing a draft. The first draft of your response to the standards. So keep in mind that there will be essentially 30 little documents, one for each standard. And that first draft, we're hoping, there's a calendar on your little handout, we're hoping to get all of that assembled in March. So that would put us a little less than 1 year away from the time ACP visits us. So to prepare the first draft, first of all, obviously the working group has to meet. And each individual there needs to know what the standard says. What is it talking about? Be familiar with the language as well as what we've said in the past. So you'll find our previous reports to ACPE on the S drive under a folder called 2016 Accreditation, 2016 Self-Study. See what we've said before, and that'll give you an idea, first of all, of the types of things we address in that standard, and second of all, what kind of language is appropriate. How do you write a response to an accreditation standard, which I recall working on this several years ago was kind of overwhelming because I know how to write scientific papers, but I don't know how to write accreditation speak. So that was a little bit challenging. So that's a good place to start. If you have a working group that is responding to a standard where we were monitored last time. Monitored means that we were in full compliance, but we had some areas of concern. It's kind of like recommend with reservation sort of designation. So if we had monitoring on a standard, which I believe there were 5 last time, pay attention to what we were monitored on and how we responded to that, so that if there's something that since then we've fixed, say it. Say, well, we were worried about this, and now we've changed this, and here we go. So just pay attention to that. One of the big ones is a curriculum one. I believe it's number 9. So that's just the one I recall. There is a rubric that when ACPE comes to visit us, they use a rubric just like we use for grading seminars for each standard. And you can find that rubric in their last report to us. Okay, so this is called the Evaluation Team Report, ETR. And that's on the S drive in the accreditation folder. You'll see a rubric associated with each standard, so you know how you're getting graded, and we have to respond in an appropriate way so that we can get the best grade. And try to indicate how we're meeting the criteria that's on that rubric. And then finally, if there are data that your working group is going to need to complete your piece of the report, let us know on the steering committee, or let the standards committee person know, and we can find that data. For example, there's one of the standards asked about NAPLEX pass rates. And you probably don't have that data at your fingertips, but somebody does, and we can find it. So don't feel like you have to gather all the data on your own. We can retrieve that kind of stuff and help you do this as easily as possible. Okay. So at the end, I'm going to bring up AAMS and I'll just show you what this looks like. Now, you've already been on the system a little bit. For the faculty at least they had to complete a faculty profile. And when you went in and did your faculty profile, you could only see that one thing about you. But eventually, you'll have access to be able to enter stuff into the standards. So the interface will look a little bit different. Essentially, you'll just have more choices at the AAMS interface. But the system is divided up for each of the individual standards, and each standard has the same 5 sections. So it's very standardized. And that everybody is gathering the same type of stuff for each standard. If you're talking about facilities, if you're talking about curriculum, if you're talking about student affairs, whatever it is. Thank you. So the first section is called documentation and data, and those are the things I was referring to, like the NAPLEX scores or our average PCAT entrance score, whatever. That's the kind of data, historical data over several years, and that will be different depending on the standard that you are assigned. A section for your college self-assessment, and I'll show you what this is. This is kind of like a little rubric. We just kind of check, like, well, where are we on this standard? Are we fully compliant with monitoring, and what do you think our score is at this point? And then you provide some comments on the standard, and for these comments, there are questions there. It's like, when you comment, you better answer this stuff. So write a little essay and answer these questions, and you'll be all set. This is really the only part of the standard stuff where you actually are doing writing. And the amount of writing is fairly small. Each section on this comments on standards, this is where we write. There are word limits here, which comes out to just a few pages per standard. So it's not, we're not preparing dissertations. We're just writing some comments that explain our data and our self-assessment. And then at the end, after you've done all that, you do a kind of a final evaluation, saying, all right, what ACPE, this is where we think we are. And if you think that we're going to have monitoring on a standard, and my example is going to be the curriculum, since we've done quite a few changes. I don't know if you've noticed over the past couple of years, that is definitely a monitoring standard. So because we have one curriculum and we're transitioning into a different looking one, and we don't know if it works or not. We don't know how well it works. And so that's definitely something that if you had that standard, you would discuss that in the monitoring section. So in the freeform stuff, just check your character limits before you go crazy and type 25 pages. And the nice thing about this is you just cut and paste from Word, so you can do your spell check. If you're uploading data, you can do that in Word or PDF form. So if you have tables that show PCAST scores or whatever, you can upload that in a couple of different ways. And you don't really need to worry about formatting. And that was something I guess they spent a lot of time on in the last report, making it look very beautiful and very appealing. And ACPE says, we don't care. That's why we made this system. We don't want someone to have an advantage because they really designed a beautiful type of report and we're really good at formatting. You know, that's not important to us. They said, in fact, what they do is when it's all in there before they come and visit us, they just download the whole thing and it comes out like all crazy formatted and jumbled up, and they really do not care. So it doesn't matter. We put it in and it's there and it's fine. So we don't have to worry about the formatting stuff. So you have, yes, sir.
Just a quick question. Since some of us are using Word and some of us are using our Macs versus PCs, do they want things uploaded in RTF, or will they accept both docs and the Apple?
I don't think that it matters. He said that when we met with him this summer, he said it doesn't really matter as long as like a text file that you're some kind of text file.
So it has to be a TXT format. Okay.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, you know, it's just cut and paste, so I don't see why it wouldn't cut and paste. When you put things into the freeform area, it's a cut and paste thing. Like you don't upload things into that. And then the other types of documents, I
was just wondering.
Yeah, I know PDF is fine, and I know a Word document is fine, and I don't know how that translates into PC versus Mac. So, I don't know. Let's see. Dates. You have a lot of dates on a calendar. Most of them are probably not all that important to everybody, so I just put the key ones up here, and you can highlight those if you want. We would like to see the working groups organized in the next month, and you know, I know that's a short time frame, and we can help you do that. The chairs can help you do that. They're very cognizant of faculty assigning jobs to other faculty, and they don't want people to feel like, well, are you my boss now? And so I know it can be a little bit sensitive when you're assigning jobs to other people and tasks to other people. So the department chairs want to help you with that, want to help you organize those working groups. And once those get organized, we need to know who they are and who you want as the manager of each standard, and we'll set up the access to the online system. And then we have some dates set up for the first few drafts, which will take us all the way through a year from now. So a year from now, we should be working on those final drafts, and there will be a period of time for everybody in the college to look at all the standards and comment if that's what you want to do. Everybody has access. We'll have access to be able to read and comment on each standard. And then we'll submit our final report to ACPE in early 2016, and they come to visit us in April. So please put that on your calendar. We want you to be at work on those days. Do not go to a meeting or something on April 12th through 14th because they like to visit us and talk to the faculty, so you have to be there for that. Okay, so that's all I'm going to talk about with the slides. I'm not going to get out of this. And I was just going to show you quickly what AAMS looks like when you log on with more than just profile access. You'll have all these tabs. And under self-study, there's a section for each individual standard. Okay? And so right now, you will see with each standard, you'll see for most of them, I am unfortunately called the standard manager, and I will not be that forever. That will be lots of different people on that column responsible for entering stuff in the standards. But I'm just going to open up one of them just to show you what the individual sections look like. So you don't have to dig out an ACPE document. The standard that you're responding to is right there in the system, so you can read it and understand what they're looking for. You notice these are very short little things, and then we have to write responses to those short little paragraphs. But within each standards, there are guidelines, so it has a little more specificity to it. So you'll be, all of your stuff should refer back to those guidelines. And then there are 5 sections, like I mentioned, under each individual section. So under each standard. So documentation and data, this is where you upload things like PCAST scores or NAPLA scores or whatever. This is one of the first curriculum standards, so they want an overview of the curriculum. They want some type of performance indicators, and you would just click there and choose your file and upload it. Within this documentation and data section, you also have graduating student surveys or faculty survey data. And this is the ACPE survey that we give to students after they leave, or the ACPE survey that faculty get every year to respond to. So this is data that we've collected over the past few years. Now, I can't recall when they populate it, but within the next few months, I believe, we'll have the next year of data. So we'll see that we're a little bit behind. It's like a year behind, essentially, but it is what it is. So what you have there in the first graph on each section is our students, what did our students say for each question, and then how did they compare to the national average. So the green is national average, and we are blue.
And that automatically gets populated. We don't do anything.
We don't do anything. It's great. And those, so if you have Standard 9, these are questions that apply to Standard 9. You don't have to dig it out and map it or do anything like that. So that's kind of nice advantage to using this online system. So there's all that data. And your data looks different depending on which standard you have. This is your self-assessment. So this is like a little report card where you indicate for each area of the guidelines, are you in compliance, do you need improvement, or are you unsatisfactory? So it's like a second grade report card kind of thing. And then here's where you do your free-form stuff. These are your comments. And those are the focus questions. There's a set of focus questions for each standard, and you have a little area to respond down below. And the bottom of that area is going to indicate how many characters you are allowed. Okay. So those are going to vary. Some standards allow more characters than others. Some they expect to be very short. For example, our relationship with, or our accreditation for ETSU. You have to write that we're SACS accredited, and that expectation for characters is very small, but some of the other ones, they want more explanation. And then your final self-evaluation, this is going to be what ACPE will eventually do. We self-evaluate, and then they do something that mirrors this. And what we really want, of course, doesn't go down. What we really want is compliant. That's definitely what we want. But sometimes we're going to get this, and that's okay. Compliant with monitoring just means that we'll have to follow up with them. And there are going to be standards that we probably will need that. We don't really want to fall in any of the other categories. Okay. If you are on a working group and you start working on this and you feel like we are not compliant or partially compliant, come back to the standards committee or come back to the steering committee, and we'll see if we can help you find some data to strengthen your case for compliance, because we don't really want to go in that direction. Okay. All right, and then if you decide we're compliant with monitoring, indicate what the recommendations are. So if it's curriculum, what are we going to do to monitor the new curriculum? All right. That's all I have to say about that. What questions do you have, or suggestions, or concerns right now? Yes, sir.
Will we be on more than one committee, each individual? I noticed that there are 30 standards, and I think there's pretty close to, I'm sure, more than 30 faculty, but not many more.
That's about right. Hopefully not more than a couple. We don't. That's the idea, is to spread it out as much as possible, and each working group will not be just faculty. So, if you have a faculty member on there, that's probably enough. And then get a staff member or get a student, get a preceptor, and the working groups are not going to be huge.
this count as administrative activity on our P&T
I
documents?
would assume so. So start counting the hours so you can figure out what percent that is. I think I've already exceeded my quota. No more questions then. We are done. Would you love getting out of class early? Thank you all very much. Whoops.
So the working group's going to be appointed?
Pardon me?
Are the working group's going to be appointed? We'll just hear that we're on this or that or whatever?
I guess. I mean, each committee will, I guess, handle it a little differently. So are you on any of that?
I'm on nothing that I know of.
Nothing. That is awesome for you. So if you're not current,
I want to know something like everybody else.
yeah.
Stacy,
I didn't, but I didn't know how.
hit the black box on that little bar on the bottom.
Okay.
If you don't, it's recording everything you say.